Yeah, so Shock Week 2026, and we're going to cover electrically safe work conditions and
Mhm.
110.3 electrical safety program with the one and only Robert Weber.
Robert from Omaha.
Robert from Omaha. Absolutely. Ooh, that was fun. Robert from Omaha. So, Robert, do you want to? Why don't you do this? I know you were on Shock Week last year. Why don't you do give everybody a little update of who Robert is, and let them know who you are.
So I am Robert Weber, best known as Robert from Omaha. And from Omaha kind of defines my mentality and my place in life in the Midwest, if you will. I've been in the electrical trade since 1973, which is getting to be a long time ago. And I remember seeing the first NFPA 70E 1979 that was published sitting on the countertop of a supply house, picking it up and looking at it and wonder what this is all about. And I don't know if I explained the last time how I was introduced to arc flash and shock, but I will here as I get my history down a little bit. Seen a lot of things develop and happen from the field through the years. Recently, 2006, I began to educate myself in 70E, 70B, and the National Electrical Code, and start networking with people such as yourself, getting to know people in IAEI, as you might have noticed, right here. Don't cut the plug out, okay? Michelle and Linda will not be happy about that. But anyway, and just being able to, humbled by the fact that people would ask me to come and explain to them these things we're going to talk about today, not just do the work, but explain deeper why we do the work. And you know, as electricians, we're the first people on the job and the last people to leave the job. The job doesn't start until the electrician's there. How do I know that? The temporary power. You don't have temporary power, you don't have job shack, you don't have coffee, you don't have anything. And I had a carpenter one time tell me that carpenters rule. I said, okay, go get your hands off. And he says, well, I'll go get my battery operated saw. I said, okay, 3 hours later, then go get your hands off, because you're going to need us one way or the other. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're right.
What would the world be without electricity?
Yeah.
And we don't stop and think about that. And the effect that it has on everything we touch, say, do, and exist in is all with electrical. And it's getting worse or more with technology.
You're right.
So now, you know, this energy we deal with moves at the speed of light. It's very impartial. OSHA went to NFPA and asked them to put together some type of safety policy or standard for us to use to enforce our policy of being safe. Because OSHA tells you what to do, but they don't tell you how to do it, right?
That's
So
right.
70E tells you how to do it. 70B tells you how to maintain. 70 tells you how to install. And you need all three of them. And then as we get into 70B, which we will eventually, you have the MTS, maintenance and testing that has to be done and how to apply all that. And 70B coming into a standard now, because it's a standard, OSHA takes notice. Okay, they don't have, OSHA takes notice now.
Yeah.
Remember, they'll tell you you must install things safely, and you must. It's the owner's responsibility. And so this is giving the owner more control and more strength and ammunition to make sure that, you know, it used to be that maintenance was for profit.
Mhm.
Well, because it's a standard now, the number one priority is safety. Maintenance is for safety now.
Well, it's referenced by 70E,
That
right?
yeah.
I mean,
And what happens if the
yep,
breakers don't open within half cycle,
that's
if
right.
they don't operate, okay?
What
So when
happens
you try it,
if you open a door and something falls down inside and causes an event?
yep, absolutely, or dust in the air,
Oh,
uh,
absolutely.
and it's I think it's the particulate, not the type of dust.
That's right.
If it's
Yeah, it's
if it's
the
light enough to be in
fineness.
the air, it doesn't make any difference what it is.
You
It's
know
gonna
what?
explode.
I was just watching a movie last night, Equalizer 3, and was it Denzel Washington, I think, is in that movie, and I was on the phone with David Englehart at the time, and in that movie, what he did was he's trying to get away from the bad guys, right? So he goes into this storefront, which is basically a bakery, and he cuts the bags of flour, and he turns on the fans, and the fans are blowing the flour dust in the air. And then he goes out the back door, and somebody who was coming in threw a flashbang in, and that ignited all of that, the particulate, and it exploded.
Yep, and it
Okay.
kept
And
exploding.
exactly, because you have, it doesn't, like you said, it's the fineness and it's the dust particles that are in the air that can ignite, and that's what happens. And a lot, some people will say, well, it was just flour. How could that have ignited? Wow. If it's
Don't tell them to get around a campfire and throw a handful of flour in the campfire because that's not a
that's
good idea to do.
not a good idea. But that's
Well,
a good example. But anyway,
it is.
I digress. But when you said that, it brought that, because I was watching that movie, and when that happened, I thought to myself about the hazardous location requirements in Article in Chapter 5 of the NEC, and then the 70E requirements around those types of applications.
Well, what about
Very
in the attic?
sensitive.
Does it get dust in the attic? Does
Oh,
fine
not
dust
my
hang
attic.
on the rafters and so forth? If there's an arc or a spark, could that ignite?
Absolutely. It's all it
You know what
takes.
I'm saying? And
Yep.
nobody thinks about it.
No, you're right.
So these policies and these procedures and that are identified in 110.3, the electrical safety program, uh, many people go over it. They go over it from different angles and so forth. In the research that I've done, I decided to ask what's the difference between policy and procedure. Okay, policies
Uh-huh.
and procedures. Okay, well, a policy defines the what and the why. What are we doing and why are we doing it? That's a policy.
That's right.
That might be our company-wide policy. And I heard a short YouTube video from EC&M where the guy says, "Well, on these bigger companies that are global, you might have a safety policy in the United States, for example, in Nebraska, but what is it like in New York, and what is it like in Canada, and what is it? Are they all tied together as a policy type of thing?"
Mhm.
And the person he asked that of was a safety individual in a plant that was in this country, and he said, "What do you do in other countries?" He goes, "I don't know. We don't know."
Wow.
Right? And
Yeah.
so that's the importance of having good policies. And these policies then have to have procedures, and procedures are the how, the when, and the who.
Right.
The how, the when, and the who. So a policy is governing rules. Procedures are actionable steps that are required,
Mhm.
and the documentation to go with it. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And principles, laws can change, but principles don't. Right. Principles are the guiding.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
and and here's the other thing: you can't have a law for everything. You can't. There's no possible way.
That's
Right.
true. That's true.
But if you have a principle, the principle can be applied when there's no law stating what you should or shouldn't do.
That's right. And we typically create laws when
Mhm.
we have those moments of disagreement of what may violate that fundamental principle that we have,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
then all of a
Exactly.
sudden you have two people who says, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and you say, "Well, that's against our principles." And so you create a law that says you shall not do that. And it's
Definition of a principle for that particular thing.
yeah,
A law has a
exactly.
definition for of the principle that applies. But now, what if you don't have a law and everybody's unsure? Maybe they're all, on the same page, but they're just unsure. Well, like I guess the principle would be the sanctity of life.
Yeah.
Think about it, right?
Yep.
Okay, what's going to happen if you point a gun at somebody? Maybe
Mhm.
nothing, maybe not. But the principle is you don't do that.
Oh, that's exactly right.
What?
Wow.
Why not? You know,
Yeah.
and so that's why it's going to. That's why this takes the safety program takes not just upper management and workers. It takes them all working together because the upper management they're doing with the bean counters and out promoting it. They're not down in the trenches working.
That's
They
right.
they might know for liability they need to do something, but these guys down here in the trenches need to be a part of it because they're the ones that are being affected by it. And
Right.
ultimately, the owner is too because OSHA holds him accountable. 70E holds him accountable for all of the setup work, all the training, all the
Yep.
labeling of the equipment, and so forth, right?
Yep.
And so 70 on the installation, 70E on the safe work practices, and 70D on the maintenance of that equipment, not just for profitability, but for safety now. All those three have now been married together because they're all standards now. And even though OSHA doesn't enforce the standard per se,
Right.
they have the policy. You be safe. Well, what does that mean? Well, you got to go to recognized industry standards.
Sure.
Will tell you how to do that. Maintain it 70B, work safely 70E.
Now, so in let's talk a little the employer has to set, I'll call it the tone, right?
Right?
The employer establishes the the employer would establish the policies and procedures
Bennett?
for their site. Now, um, I might be an employer, but you might work for a contractor, and your contractor will have their policies and procedures.
Mhm.
So you have to follow your contractor's policies and procedures, but then be aware of when you're on a job site that now the employer could be somebody different, and you have to make sure that you follow their policies and procedures, which may be more stringent
Bennett?
than what your organizations are. And then you go always down to the individual because each individual has their own. I would say I don't know if I would call it a policy, but it's a safety mindset, right? I might take on more risk than somebody else takes on, but then when I work for somebody, I'm following those policies and procedures to keep my level of risk in check so that it aligns with my employer's level of risk acceptance. Does that make sense?
Bennett?
Am I saying?
Yeah, it's kind of like you have plans and specs on a job.
Yeah,
Okay, the plans are what you're going to do. The specifications are going to tell you what to use, how to use it, where to use it, when to use it, and so
that's
forth.
right.
And even though you might get by with the code minimum, you're still going to be held accountable to the specs because that's
That's
what the
right.
owner wanted. That's the specification. And so if you have an electrical safety program, you need to give thought, and it's got to be a team effort. I like the way one person put it when they were talking about the EMP, electrical maintenance program. You have to have an electrical maintenance committee.
That's right.
Of, you know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
why
Oh
not?
yeah.
And if they don't have those industry experts in their company, then be the industry expert for them. Like you've got maintenance companies, you've got
Sure.
safety program companies, but you might get embedded in these different owners and so forth. They'll come to you, and you could be one person in a group of their people.
No, absolutely
and,
right.
and to encourage that type of thing. The program I'm going to do the 23rd, I'm introducing the 70B program I was telling you about, in addition to the 70E class that I'm going to give, and it just dovetails right into 70.
Oh, well,
From
yeah,
installing it to working on it to maintaining it and so
that's
forth.
right.
And everybody's got to be on board with it. Let me go through a little bit more on the policies and procedures. The definition of policy is the governing rules. The procedure is the actionable steps that are required and documented. Focus Policies focus on outcomes, compliance, intent. Procedures focus on consistency, efficiency for specific task completion.
Hmm.
Policies in general are stable or solid. Procedures can change frequently and adapt to new technology. Um, I had an example here. If you've got a new piece of equipment, you have to establish the procedures on maintaining that piece of equipment or working on it safely, but that has to align with the general policy up here of being safe,
That's
right?
what it.
Or the goal, right?
Yep.
Um, Policy says, for example, all expense reports must be submitted within 30 days. Procedure tells you the instructions on how to log in to do this, how to fill out the form, how to submit the form. Okay, and we're going to apply that to 110.3 in the electrical safety program because we have general, in parenthetical B, there's inspections, condition of maintenance, awareness and self discipline. What is that about? Awareness and self discipline.
That's the hard.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. I
Yeah.
think awareness and self discipline has got to be the hardest piece or the hardest requirements that are in 70E to enforce. I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you enforce self-discipline?
Well, here's the thing. You enforce it. Let's see. I had that right on my mind. Again, you can have the attitude that it's attitude adjustment is what it is.
It's yeah,
It
yeah,
has to be attitude adjustment, and it's only as hard as everybody makes it. Why does
it
it have to
is.
be hard? I mean, yeah, blame it on human nature. That's just an explanation. That's not an excuse.
Sure, sure.
And that's why please increment into the code and just don't come all in, right?
but if you put yourself in the shoes of, say, an owner, and let's
Mhm.
say that you own a contracting business, electrical
Mhm.
contracting business, and you've got 100 people working for you. You have what section of the electrical safety program is the where is it at? You got human error.
Mhm.
Where is the
Risk assessment, human error, and hierarchy risk control methods, and that's in 110.3H, as in Henry.
yeah, no, where's the
And
one in here for self-discipline or
110.3D, as in dog,
D's and dog? There it is. All right,
self
awareness is
discipline and awareness.
okay. So what 70E says is the electrical safety program has to be designed to provide an awareness, which is easy, of the potential electrical hazards.
Mhm.
I think that's achievable. I can
Oh,
I
yeah.
can teach my people how to recognize that.
Mhm.
To employees who work in an environment with the presence of the program shall be developed to provide the required self-discipline for all employees. How do you provide? I mean, think about those words. I'm going to provide you with self-discipline. Those two words conflict with each other. I
No,
can't
not really.
provide
Not
somebody
really.
with
Well, you're providing for, okay, this or that. You're recognizing the hazard, first
yeah,
of all,
yep,
and then you're going to say, well, here's what could happen if we ignore this, this, and this. And so that what you're teaching, right, your
yep.
employees, that this is why. And you can tell people what to do all day long. You might even tell them how to do it. But if you don't get why they need to do it, I think that's what this is trying to tell us. the program has to be developed in such a manner that they understand the why they do it and they understand the benefit to them personally, as
And
well
then
as to the company if they
right.
follow that.
And then they have to you're relying on them to apply their self-discipline based upon, to your point, you need to educate them on what to do and then why it's important and rely on them to marry those two so that when you're not looking, they
Exactly.
choose the right thing.
And
So
encourage
if I
benefits, show the benefit to them
yep.
also.
So if I have 100 employees who all have company vehicles and they're going to get in that vehicle and drive to the job site, I have to rely on them and their self-discipline that they're not going to pick up the cell phone while they're driving. They're not going to run a red light.
Mhm.
They're not going to speed, and they are going to put on their seatbelts. Okay,
Exactly.
that's all self-discipline, but I have no control over that. But I have to implement. I would think. Here's what I think. The way you get that done is through enforcement, right? If I can go onto a
Sure.
job site and see people, hey, you're not wearing your vest. I'm putting your vest on, and then the aspect of I don't want to say three strikes you're out, but something like there is a cause and effect because you didn't have that. Something else is going to be impacted.
There's
Maybe
accountability.
that yeah, it's an accountability aspect. So some way you have to instill accountability so that when they're in by themselves in that situation, they make the right decision
But
from a safety perspective.
they,
That
they, they have to, that has to be their desire. That has to be their, um, they have to have the reasons to have that desire. I was thinking
right.
as you're talking here, what if each and every employee was the business owner for a day
Oh,
and
I
he
you
was
know what
exposed
when
to
but here's
everything that and then
here's
the
what I would
boss,
do.
if he was out there in the field for a day and the workers saw him, but it's that communication that yeah, if I don't wear my vest, I might get in trouble, but I want to wear my vest because
I know it's the right
it's not
it's
it's the
good for
right
me.
not only the right thing to do, but my family and so forth. And going back to the company vehicle, you're not just going to wear your seatbelt. You're going to go through and when you come out to that vehicle, you're going to walk around the vehicle, make sure and inspect it, check
Yep.
the tires, check everything, maybe check the oil. Think of a pilot. A pilot, when he gets to go on a plane, he has to go through this enormous checklist of everything before he begins to turn the engine on. Why does
Well,
he do that?
yeah,
Because
so
of the love of flying, because of his
well, they also know
expertise
the
and so forth.
impact if what
Yeah,
happens if they don't
yeah,
follow that checklist because there's things on that checklist like, for example, the one example that was given me, there was an individual, I can't think of his name now, a prominent flyer, a gentleman who flew a lot. It was his son who also flew a lot, who was taking the plane from point A to point B. He didn't complete the checklist, and then the engine vapor locked in midair, and he crashed. And it was because he did not. I think it was something with the propeller. You had to cycle it one time or something like that to get things.
mhm,
I don't know anything about planes, but I just know that he did
yeah.
not follow that checklist, and
Took
I
way too many
remember
shortcuts.
seeing that discussion or presentation in I don't know if it was an electrical safety workshop or what it was, but they were describing that scenario and the importance of following those you know the checklist, so to speak, right?
Right, right.
But that's to your point. If you get your employees doing that and they're accustomed to that, it becomes what kicked off our discussion. It
Yeah,
becomes a habit, right? It becomes
exactly.
one of those things that when you get in the car and you're driving down the road,
Yeah.
you don't remember putting your seatbelt on, but you
It
did.
becomes a way of life. It's just like breathing.
Yes,
You don't even give it a second thought.
that's
And
exactly
and
right.
what I think in terms of my thought on it is I would rather have the employees choosing to do it rather than, okay, you're going to be accountable. This is what's going to happen to you if you don't do it. That's almost
Yeah,
like the world says, I've got all this big arsenal, so you better have peace or I'm going to use this. It just doesn't make any sense, right?
that's
You,
right.
you can't threaten. You got to get people to do things because they want to do them. How do you do that? You got to know your company.
Yeah,
It's got to be more than profitability. Yeah, profitability is important, but it's got to be more than that. Um, and everybody's got to be on board. And how do you do that? Well, you got to develop that. You put a seed in the ground, and it doesn't pop up a plant overnight. It takes nurturing, and it takes watering, and it takes development, and it
that's
takes
right.
consistent practice. And the electrical safety program, once it's set up and in place with the policies, now the procedures for each and every piece of equipment to work on it, if that's necessary.
Yep,
But these procedures then can be modified if need be. The general policy stays the same, but you don't have to go through upper management to approve of everything because the procedure is in line with the policy, even though the procedure has to be modified from time to time. Does that make
so
sense?
document your policies, communicate those policies to all of your
Mhm.
employees. They have to understand what those are, and then give them access to procedures. And honest, I think that it's the procedures of what's relevant for the individuals.
Mhm. Oh, that's got to come into it. Here's an example of a procedure. Parenthetical I, job safety planning and job briefing. First of all, the qualified person has to go out there. What are we going to do? Why do we have to
Mhm.
do it? How are we going to do it? What's the materials that we need? What are things that could happen all down the road? And if he's wise enough to get the next step on the planning portion, there are what 3 steps in parenthetical one
Mhm.
and one, two, three, four, 5 sub-steps. This is the procedure to get that done. The
That's right.
policy is we do this because we're being safe, and this is our company policy. We don't want anybody to get hurt. Our goal is our mission is this, so to speak.
That's right.
But this is a perfect example of how it procedure. Okay, and another perfect example. Actually, there was more than five. There was six there because there was a new one that was added up at the right hand column in gray. Uh, F, an
The
emergency
emergency.
response plan is now part of that.
Yeah.
Now, how many times do you do a job safety, job hazard analysis with everybody? And I see this all the time. They go
Yeah.
through, here's the hazards, here's what's going to happen here, but they never say what's going to happen if somebody gets hurt.
You
Where
know,
is the breaker to shut this off? What
yep.
is the emergency phone number? Who is going to be responsible for calling that? All of these different things. Where's our rescue? Look, who's going to be in charge of that? And you do that each and every time you do this because you don't know when or if something's going to happen. It's not
That's right.
when, it's not if something's going to happen, it's
It's
when.
when. Like when I was young, my dad worked in a steel mill, and his job at one point was a coordinator, so to speak, from a safety perspective. And I would say his primary responsibility was that emergency response plan, because one of the problems that they had was when they had an event in the plant, let's say that there was an explosion or somebody got hurt, and they called a fire truck or an ambulance. A, a steel mill plant, the Jones and Laughlin Steel Mill, was a very large facility along the Ohio River. So what he did was he came up with a plan and they implemented, and then he would run tests. Do like he would say, okay, we're going to run a drill, and what he would do, everybody who came in, they anybody who was a part of that safety coordination team, they all knew their role for the emergency response. So what they would do is that he would create a an imaginary event, say at the boiler house, and he would say, okay, we have a man down at the boiler house. We're going to they cooperated with the hospital, and they would have a vehicle come in that would be the like say the ambulance, and they would come through the front gate, and everybody had their spot always for every turn to get to where the say the boiler house was. When that vehicle came in, there was an individual standing there with directions. And when he would go, that driver would drive down until they see another vehicle, a gentleman who would point him in a different direction, all the ways down to where the event was or where the victim
The
was.
victim was.
Yeah. And he said, so they measured and they calculated how much time that they saved overall in getting an emergency responder to that location for that individual. And that is what saves lives when everything else fails. It's like PPE, it's like GFCIs. That is your last resort. If you're going to if your stage 1 is okay, what's the emergency response plan, and you didn't talk about the job and the individual task. I like the way the order is of this too.
Yeah.
You got the description of the job in A. B is identification of the electrical hazards. C is the shock risk assessment. D is the arc flash risk assessment. E are your work procedures, any special precautions. And then it's like, okay, all else failed. What's our emergency response plan? I like
Exactly.
it.
And practicing that more than
Yeah,
just going over it once every 3 years. That doesn't make any sense.
that
I
doesn't
like
cut it.
to use the analogy of you're not gonna send a bunch of soldiers into battle without going through boot camp.
Amen
I
to
mean,
that.
intensive training under those types of situations. For example, how many people on your crew know what a rescue hook is? How
That's
many
right.
people on your crew, if there's no rescue hook, know what to use in place of a rescue hook? You know what the number one thing they call for is a 2x4. And everyone laughs. Well, you
Yeah.
can use a 2x4 if you know how to use it properly. How close
Where
can you get to the victim,
There
for
it is.
example?
It's
You
in
see what I'm saying?
contact release. C.
Yep.
That is in C is in which section? 110.4 training
Yep.
requirements.
Yep.
So this is another big aspect which I've always asked, who does emergency response contact release training?
See,
There's not too many people that do that.
but no. I see where you're going with this, but you're confusing that with number two, first aid, emergency response, and resuscitation. We're talking about contact release.
That's what I'm saying, contact
Anybody
release.
and everybody should know how to do contact release. How do
Here's the
you
thing.
use a rescue hook? How,
When was the last time you got or saw someone do training on a rescue hook? How to use a
that's the
rescue
point.
hook.
That's
That's
the
right.
whole point. That's why
Yeah,
in my classes, I highlight the difference between the two. Yes, you're going to have somebody there that knows first aid, emergency response, and so forth. But
sure.
here's what it says: employees exposed to electric shock hazards
Mhm.
and those responsible for safe release of victims need to be trained in methods of safe release.
That's right.
Every single person that interacts with electricity, this is what's required. I don't care if you're a painter, I don't care
Yep.
who you are, but especially an electrician. How do you get somebody in can't let go? What do you do? Well, you can use a 2x4 if you've got a long enough one. What's the approach distance before you become part of the circuit? Or do you remove the equipment, or do you remove the person? I mean, these are small things that everybody needs to know how to do. I mean, this
Uh,
is what it's calling for. And
Yeah.
yes, we'll get our first responder over here, but time is of the essence, correct?
Yeah. So, and you know what? Here's the thing I dig to do. Anytime I'm with like any one of my relatives and stuff like that, I grab a
Mhm.
2x4 or a 2x6 and I whap them upside the head. And I just say, I'm practicing my contact release.
Yeah, this is the reason why we have all of this stuff out there. Well, you know
Really
what you
is.
do. You know what you do when the boss gets in the can't let go.
My what?
You go for coffee. But anyway, uh,
Speaking of
I didn't
which,
mean that. I didn't. And I in my classes I say, we make fun and light of this, but really it's not. This is
no,
people's
yeah.
life that
Oh,
we're
yeah.
talking about. And if you go back to informative annex E, so many
Informative
people point out
Annex E,
informative annex E because
the
this
electrical
book
safety program.
tells you not only what needs to happen, and but it tells you and why it needs to happen, but it tells you how. And in the back, it goes through each one of those. E1 is the principles, E2 is the program controls, and E3 is the program procedures. Now, thoughtful time spent in this area with the employees, with the owners, with bean count, with everybody, because we're all on the same team. Because what happens here with the employees is going to affect the bean counters and affect the profitability eventually, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's all tied together. You can't escape that. It's like driving down the road and never checking the air in your tires and never checking the tread.
You know,
Eventually, the tires wear out, and they're going to create an accident.
absolutely. The informative Annex E electrical safety program. Um, that's an interesting.
It's
I,
just
I
a
don't.
guide,
I don't think I've ever really. There's only 3 parts to it, and I
right?
don't think I've ever really sat down and read through that informative annex
Yeah, you know
before.
how we read the code sections like you were doing to adjust put a public input in.
Oh boy,
You
yeah.
know how thoroughly you go through, or
Yeah.
any of us go through, how thoroughly the pros, cons, if it's worded this way or worded that way. Well, these informative annexes aren't enforceable, but they are awfully good guides. They've got the information and the how to get to that point. And if you tie that in with uh, Annex F on how to do risk assessment,
Mhm.
and then tie that into Annex Q on human development.
Look at
Now,
that.
those three together, as you're putting in, human performance, as you're putting in your safety program, which is there in 110.3 H uh, 2, human error. Well, it refers you back to Annex Q for a reason. And go back there and look at that.
Yeah.
Nobody goes back and looks at, oh, it's not enforceable. It doesn't mean anything. No, that's got everything that you need to know as a minimum. Now, in your company, you might enhance that, but you're not going to know if you don't have a foundation to enhance from. And that's why you
No.
have your three controls on if you're going to do something, you say you're going to do it, they repeat it back to you, you say it again, you do it. Now, if you get into that procedure with everything that you do, your probability of something going wrong, okay, is going to go lower, not higher, right?
Yeah.
Because you're practicing those things.
And I
Does
think
it
that's
take
why. I think that's why 70E is a 70E is your ingredients for your safety program.
exactly?
So you're not supposed to be using 70E as your safety program. You're
Correct.
supposed to use
Right.
70E to help you develop your own safety program.
Because once you develop that safety program, 70E is not law, but technically, if you develop that for your company, that program is law. And that's
Yeah.
how it's looked at in federal courts, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't make any difference what the other standards say. This is what you have said. This is so even though the 70E isn't mandatory or enforced by law and things like that, I listened to was it Jim Dollard and you 3, 4, or 5 years ago, you had that discussion on how do you enforce 70E.
Yeah.
And it's not us; it's the courts that will enforce it, and it's OSHA will use it as a benchmark. And now that 70D has become a standard, not just a recommended practice, it's gotten OSHA's attention.
That's right.
And so now
Yeah.
OSHA inspectors can come in, and they've got one more tool in their arsenal as a measurement tool. We told you to be safe. We don't care what you use, but why didn't you use an industry standard developed by the industry for the industry and is recognized by ANSI and so forth? Why didn't you choose to use? Why don't you have anything at all? Or why do you have parts of it here and parts of it there and some of it over here? And
Yeah.
nothing is in a program that is enforced that your company uses to operate, so to speak.
Yeah. No, I get it. I
Does that
get
make
it.
some sense? I probably didn't articulate that the
Yeah.
way I wanted
No.
to.
No, I get it. I get it. That
And so, these types of things like you're doing here gives an opportunity to hear a discussion between some industry experts that somebody's going to listen to and it's going to get the wheels going. And that's the whole goal of this whole thing, right?
yeah.
Get the wheels going. We're not, pounding soapbox about this or about that. No, we're reaching out to people and say, think.
Oh yeah, yeah. You have to and think for yourself, right? So it's a matter of taking this resource, understanding it, and then build your safety plan for your organization.
Exactly.
And then to your point, making that would you call you would have to establish your policies. This isn't
Mhm.
going to tell you what your policies are. You as an organization, you as a
Exactly.
company will have to establish what your policies are,
Mhm.
and then you put in place all of your procedures to your earlier point.
Right.
It's policies and procedures. You put your policies in place. A policy could be we're always going to establish electrically safe work condition when we work on things.
Right. That's the
And then your
policy.
procedures, that's your policy, and your procedures are here's how you get it done. And 70E can
Yeah.
help you understand how to get that done.
Yeah.
Right?
And then bringing 70B into the trilogy now. You don't perform maintenance on a piece of equipment and call it good. Now you have
That's right.
specific procedures to go through on testing that equipment to call it maintained and the condition of it in different stages, like if it's brand new or it's been there for a while and so forth. And that tells you how all of this, it makes everything more accountable and not for profitability. It's really, you can't tell that this point stuck with me, but for safety now. 70B's priority is for safety. 70E's priority is for safety. And 70's priority is for safety from the installation portion of it,
That's right.
right? The
Yeah.
installation of the systems.
It's
And so
they all work
why do we
together.
do this?
All three of
Yeah,
them work together.
they have to.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful. They're separated like that for a reason because they focus on different portions of the electrical system or work that you're doing. And
That's right.
goals and missions are one thing. Okay.
Yep.
And policies are underneath that, and procedures for each and everything is underneath all of that, but they all work together to
Yeah.
give an, you know, a work
That's right.
environment that's safe and profitable and so forth.
That's why when you have a good, if you think about it, you brought up the goals and objectives and things like that, and you have when you have a good strategical plan, say you have a good safety strat plan, you would have your mission statement, your goals, your strategies, and tactics, right? So you have a hierarchy of things,
Mhm.
and and then you could sit down and say, okay, our our goal is to have zero incidents,
Mhm.
and then you have strategies and tactics to get that done. And a part of that is the self-discipline thing, and how do you
Mhm.
instill the proper behaviors in your employees? How do you give them the ability to feel comfortable to say, no, I'm not going to do that, or wait, I'm not ready for this because I don't know that I find qualified to
Mhm.
perform that, to be able to recognize when they aren't qualified, and then to be able to say, what do I what am I supposed to do when I realize I'm not
Yep.
qualified for that, right? So all of those things are under that umbrella of I want zero incidents,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And that's the goal that not just the owner's going for, not just the bean counter, not just
Yeah,
the foreman's or the crew leaders, the guy running the shovel, that's his goal. And
yeah,
he's made it his goal. Somebody hasn't made that goal for him, but he has bought into it. The only way they're going to to buy into it is to be informed and instructed and taught and shown the benefit and the value of doing it. And
that's
if they're
right.
going to choose to be a part of this, they chose to be a part of it. So then you wind up making a plan. You
Mm,
make your plan and then you work your plan, right? You
that's
make
right.
it and you work it. And I can tell you, back in 2014 to 2018, I worked on right around a 1.5 million square foot project that had four 70-unit apartment buildings and a 580,000 square foot 3-story office building and so forth. And at one point, there were 4,000 workers, volunteer workers on that job.
Wow.
And the insurance company told them to expect at least 5 deaths. Okay. You know how
Really?
many deaths? You know how many deaths they had?
I don't know.
Zero.
Beautiful.
Zero. Because they followed safety protocol following 70E and then made it a little more stringent. But every worker that came on that job went through some training to start with, but everybody on the job supported it, from the crew leaders all the way to uh, individuals responsible for the blueprints, the engineers, and everything that was on. But they had a common goal, and that was no deaths. Now, did
Mhm.
they have bruises and cuts and things? Yeah, but nothing serious, because and they did it in less time
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because of following that, because everybody was working together on it. And
Oh,
that's the whole.
yeah, I was watching what Bobby Joe and I do whenever I want to veg out and not think about anything, I'll watch some TV, and there's a program on there. I can't think of the name of it. It's about firefighters.
Kind of.
But there was a person who was training a new firefighter on how to dress, and I can't remember the term she used, but she says her comment was to there's speed in deliberateness or something, or being slow and deliberate.
Inaccuracy. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, be slow and deliberate, and you will shorten up the overall time that it takes for you to put your feet in those in your, because you know how they put the
Yep.
clothing down. You put your feet in your boots. Now you pull your pants up. Then you got to put your jacket on. You've got to layer it correctly and button up. And they were like clocking each other because you only had so many seconds to get it done. And her comment to the one individual was, "There's speed in being slow and deliberate." And I thought
Yeah.
that it was interesting on how she explained it, but in reality,
Yep.
it's back to the fundamental core of things. Of,
Yep.
if there's a process, you're following the process and you're consistent, and then it becomes a habit, and you
Yep.
just do it,
Yeah,
right?
it's a way of life, and when that alarm goes off, you're
Yeah.
instantly in that mode, and yeah, there's speed
Not
and
me when my alarm
consistency,
goes
and
off.
yeah, yeah. We're not. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Oh, what a rabbit hole that is.
Oh, man, because it's like, if you don't, like in a situation like that, if you don't have your boots on properly and you're two-thirds dressed, you're gonna have to go all the way back to the boots and start over again to
That's
do it to make it fit correctly.
that's right.
And now
That's
you've now
exactly
you've
right.
now you've lost all that time, and somebody could be burning up, type of thing. So,
And donning your personal protective equipment
mhm,
for electrical workers is the same thing. You have a process.
yeah,
You have to know how to layer correctly,
yeah,
what goes on first, what clothing overlaps what. I mean, do your gloves overlap your shirt? Does your
mhm,
shirt overlap your glove? What happens when you don't do that correctly?
yeah,
How do you
yeah,
make sure that you do it correctly? Right?
yeah.
So, and the process that you follow makes sure that you end up with the right configuration of your personal protective
Well, and
equipment.
that dovetails nicely into the latter part of that, auditing. Why are you doing the auditing for your
Yes,
safety program? Is it working? Okay,
that's
to
right.
your point with your dad when he set that stuff all up, did that flow smoothly immediately the first time? No,
Yeah,
everybody's going, "Well, wait a minute.
that's
Was
right.
I supposed to do what?" No, but they laid it down, they followed it, and they practiced it enough to keep good at it.
Yeah,
So that not if something goes wrong, when something went wrong, but it took time, and it took the buy-in of every person on that step. The one, no matter who you were, it didn't matter if you were just the person that was the flight guy. I
right.
mean, what glory is there? that flag guy is not there. He's a part of it, part of the system, an important part, and everybody has to feel that way about their particular role. And if they do, right, if they're trained for a common goal and a common mission, and here's my portion, doesn't matter if you're the big cog on the machine or the small cog. That was brought home to me when I found out what happened with the space shuttle, one of the space shuttles that blew up a long time ago,
Yeah.
that teacher and so forth. A failure of a small O-ring,
Yeah.
okay, a little 50, 75 cent O-ring, and look at the horrendous. So is every person's part important? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you've got to let them know and have them feel that. And once you do that, you don't have to worry about the accountability portion because they're going to be harder on themselves because of that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you could have it there, but the reason that you do it is because they've bought into it. And how do you do
There's
that?
a
Well, you're passionate about what you do. That's why people are buying into a lot of, your programs, podcast, for example, because we're all on that same boat. We're not there just to listen to Tom go on. We're there to contribute, and you have a lot to do
sure.
with that because you get everybody involved, type of thing. So we
Yeah.
each can do that.
Yep. I agree. Yeah, there's a lot there. That's for sure. I love it. I love it. This is good stuff, Robert.
Well, we're not covering quantity. We're trying to cover quality. And
Yeah.
so we might not have gone through the whole book or even a whole section, but I think we've lightly touched, no pun intended, because we're electricians, we've lightly touched the importance, the behind the scenes. And really, this is like the lubrication to get the rest of it to go. Why are we doing this?
Lubrication.
Why are we buying into this? Well, everybody contributes um, their
Yeah.
portion of it, whether it's great or small. And it's true, you get out of it what you put into it.
No, I agree. I agree. And all right, so we covered the policies, covered the procedures, we covered human error and the aspect of trying to instill in your employees and each other what to do when people aren't looking, making the right decisions, the right choices at the right times. We covered the whole aspect of I think it all came full circle with how do you reinforce it? How do you check it, right? How do I audit
Mhm.
the results and watch that it's being implemented correctly? And then I think there's a sensitivity and you want reinforcement, you want positive reinforcement. You need to have accountability to your point, and make sure that everybody is, following the procedures that you've laid out. Because that's what
Asking
it all comes
asking
down
for
to.
asking for feedback and accepting feedback and
Oh,
allowing
yes.
people to feel safe about giving feedback.
Plus, you might have a procedure down that you think is impeccable, but it doesn't account for certain things because once you start, it's just like making a PowerPoint. If
Yep.
you do teaching as I do, we create a PowerPoint and then we stand up in front and we were going through the slides and we're going, well, that doesn't make sense. That
Yep.
order doesn't make sense, right? And then you
Yep.
make your notes to say, I've got to fix this, right?
Yeah.
Or the people in the audience might tell you this doesn't
Yeah.
what you're saying is out of order. So it's important to understand the process you put together and then be open to making the corrections and
Yeah.
adjustments. And then like Wes Wheeler brought up last year at during the shock week, what happens when you did your pre-job planning, you know exactly what you're going to do, and while you're doing it, something happens and it changes everything.
Yeah.
Now, now you have a plan or you had a plan and
Yeah.
things change to a point where now all of a sudden my plan has changed and your whole
Yeah.
risk assessment is different now, right? Because now there are other risks. It could be something like what he brought up is he said he says, what happens if you're in the middle of something and all of a sudden there's an active shooter going on, or
Yeah.
you're in the middle of working and your boss shows up and walks into the safety right
Or
in.
the owner that signs your checks walks up to you.
Yeah. The person who signs the checks walks up to you and asks you a question while you're behind the switchgear, and you've got to look and say, "Get the heck out," or
Yeah.
escort them out. Now
Yeah.
your conditions changed. Your whole risk assessment is no longer accurate. How
Yeah.
do you respond?
Well, and your mental disposition has changed.
Yeah.
And that throws all of it off because here you were solid and confident in what you were doing, and
Yep.
something has changed that, and it's not just physically changed, it's emotionally changed, and it's mentally changed and everything. Because now you got to come back and try to pick up pieces where you were in the moment, and
Yeah.
maybe where you were in the moment was a critical point, and you're trying to play catch up, and mistakes
Yeah.
are going to happen.
Yeah. Next thing you know, it's like you say, is you've lost your train of thought. And or did I torque that down or not? I
Mm.
can't remember if I torqued it, because before I could get to market, I had another event going on. So now what do you
Yeah.
do? Do
Yeah.
you undo the termination, clean up the conductor, put it back in again, and start over again?
Well,
You know?
70B tells you that if you go to 90% of the torque value and doesn't move, you're okay, right? So we're
Yeah.
safe
Is it
here. We're
90 or
good
is
to
it
go.
80? Is it 90 or
That's
80?
90.
Is it
Yeah,
90? Okay.
7.7. Up
I'm going to go
good.
there. I'm going to double check. So what I'm going to do is I use these are good teaching moments for me, but
Yeah.
chapter 7 are your fundamental tests.
Yep.
And then you go to bolted bus connection conductors. I
I
don't
think
know.
it's 7.2
Torque
or something. Yeah.
7.2.
Yeah.
So
There it is.
7.2 is bolted bus connections, conductor terminations, and conductor connectors. 721 is talks about the quality of undisturbed bolted
Right.
electrical bus connections. 7214 is torque verification.
Yep.
And it says 90% right there. When using a
Yep.
calibrated torque wrench to confirm the torque of previously installed threaded hardware, the retightening value shall not exceed 90% of the manufacturer's specified initial torque value. So, and I think now what they should do is have a little informational note there, because I believe when if it moves, I've heard people say that if you're turning it, if it moves when you're turning that, you have a problem.
Mhm.
It should not move, and you should just get to that 90% number and be
Yeah.
done.
And the problem with all of that is 90% of the stuff out there's never been torqued anyway. So it's like,
That's true.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's the two
Yeah.
method, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the grunt method. Yeah.
The two grunt methods. Yeah. I guess it's not a method. That is a grunt, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got to put yourself into it there a little bit. Just,
Is that right? Okay. You got to
yeah,
get like
not this little,
animated.
not this little, oh, I don't want to get it
Yeah. I
broken.
don't want to hurt myself, right?
You're talking with your pinky up.
Yes. Yes. That's not good. Then yeah, you want to make sure that you do it right. But then there's over torque issues too. That's the other
Yep.
problem that you have.
Yep. Yep.
And
You
there's no
damage the
test for
conductor,
that.
more surface contact, and you strip the threads, you crack the lug. There's all kinds of stuff that
There's
happens
no
with that.
test for an over torque situation.
No, no, the test will be under load when it explodes, and
And
then it'll pass or not pass.
and then the only way to fix any torque issue is to undo it, get a fresh portion of conductor, and then
Mhm.
re-terminate.
And everybody's allowed for that on their terminations in the beginning, right? Because if you have to do that and you cut that off, now it's not long enough to get to the lug anymore because they didn't leave any service loop on there because they're trying to be nice and neat.
As ceiling fans are infamous for this.
Oh yeah.
It just seems that every
Oh yeah.
ceiling fan I've ever put in, I take the conductors and you untake those nuts off of there, and I stretch them. I pull them straight, and they're still up in the box.
Yeah.
And then you've got to hold the fan,
Yep. Yep.
balance on a on a ladder, you know,
and
It's
have her
just
watch video for America's Funniest Videos and
yeah.
send it in. And
Yes. Oh my goodness. And then she wanted to help me. So I forget what ceiling fan I was putting on, or a light. It was a chandelier. And you always put all those little glass beads on before you hang the chandelier,
yeah,
because you
yeah,
could put it on the dining room table and do all that. And then you get up on the ladder, and then she says, "I'll get a ladder." So you have two ladders side by side, two people side by side, one person trying to hold the chandelier
yeah,
while I'm sitting there trying to do the wiring, and it's a nightmare. It really
yeah.
is, and they're never long
Especially
enough.
when you get your fall protection all tangled up and, "Oh, wait, you're
Well, what's
leaving
that?
here."
Like fall protection? What's that, right? I mean, back to do your employees do things that they should be doing when you're not looking, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
and and then it's
And
back to what level of risk am I personally willing to accept, and how does that
yeah,
conflict with the level of risk that your employer is willing to accept? There are
yeah.
differences there.
Oh, there are, and, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Your acceptability of risk, people get in the car and start driving down the road, when that phone rings, you've got a choice, and the
Oh,
choice is
yes.
always, "Hey, I've done this before." That's exactly what we're telling you not to do with 70E.
Exactly.
So what's the difference? They're both life
Yes.
safety issues, but mentally, we're not geared to we're geared to ignore one and hopefully not the other type of thing.
Yeah.
So,
And then now the nice thing about technology is technology has grown considerably with regard to this very nice lady on my phone that I just can say her name and say, "Hey, could you send an email for me?" I'll never forget the day I first figured that out. I promised somebody that after I made a phone call, I would send him an email and let him know that I had talked to this individual. He said, "Don't call me, don't text me, send me an email. He's going to be in a meeting." I said, "All right." So I called, did what I was supposed to do, and I was late leaving for a NEMA meeting. So I jumped in my car and I get out on the road, and then I realized I forgot to send my email. Now, I know I have zero time. I can't stop,
mhm,
pull up my computer, log in, connect it to my phone for internet, all that jazz, and I'll be late for my meeting. So what I did was I yelled out her name and I said, "Can you send an email?" And she said, "Yes, I can send an email. Who do you want to send it to?" I said, "Send it to so and so." And she says, "What would you like the subject to be?" I'm like, "That phone call that you asked me for." And she says, "Okay, what would you want to say in this email?" So I said it. And then she read it back to me. And I'm
really?
like, it was beautiful. And now I'm driving down the
Yeah.
road and I'm like, she says, "Would you like to send it?" I said, "Heck yeah, I would like to send it." And I sent my email. I mean, that was like, if you when you think about when we were kid, well, you said you started 75? No,
73.
73. I was 5 years old in 73. Back in 1973, you didn't have a cell phone. You did
No,
you
we didn't even have 2 we didn't even have 2 cans and a string back then.
Your can lights were just exactly like the can light that you sent
That's
me.
exactly right.
Okay? So
Yeah.
so if you think about back then and then fast forward to now, where we have this ability. I mean, like these lights, I mean, I I put all of these lights in and I can sit down and change. I could say what I want. I could turn off my all of my studio lights.
Mhm.
I've got these lights back here. I don't know if you can see them.
Mhm.
They're going off, and what they are is I have them set in a mode for um, a candle, so they're getting dimmer and brighter, just like a candle would respond,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it is phenomenal. on what you can do by speaking. I sit down when I don't know if you were like, well, yesterday I was trying to come up with substantiation for some of my public inputs. And I get a little thing on my phone, on my computer, and I'm speaking and it's
Mhm.
writing down the information. It's
And
writing.
organizing it for you.
Yeah, yeah. So then you throw artificial intelligence on top of that. And now take that to the safety realm.
Yeah.
Just think if you could in real time be out there on a site and say, here's my situation. I have a motor and I need to do X, Y, and Z. And if it has access to all of your safety procedures and say, can you put together my safety procedures so that I can maintain pull maintenance on this motor safely? What is it that I need to do? And have it give you your checklist based
Yeah,
upon,
how you could do that is the QR codes that are on there now for all of that tied in with the AI.
yeah,
You
you
take a
could.
snap of the
Yes,
QR code, boom, there it is.
there it is.
One other thing that you could do now with the technology that you're talking about is informative annex O.
Oh, 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 oh,
Oh, oh, oh, oh. You
oh,
don't have to
oh,
go.
it's
Okay,
magic.
we gotta stop. We gotta
Employee safety related design concepts and facility owner
you can
responsibility.
design all of that. Your
Yes.
engineer, you guys can design all of that into the equipment. You can design all these safety features and cut down, the hazard to a tremendous amount just by using these features. One of which you talked about here, if you could somehow take a picture of the
Yep.
QR code, AI would see it and tell you everything you need to know. Now you've reduced your paperwork down to almost zero, and you've just took a picture of something and boom, it's right there, everything that you need.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm learning more and more about AI outside of
Mhm.
the DC data centers and all this other stuff,
Mhm.
the infrastructure that has to go on. But I'm learning more about how to use it, and I'm realizing that you just don't take it verbatim. It gets you
Right.
started, right?
Right.
At least now I think it is at a point where you can load information into the engine and then it can learn you. So
Yeah.
so you can train the model on your policies and procedures and have your own behind the firewall artificial intelligence engine
Yeah.
working so that you can ask a question and it will look at your policies and procedures and give a response based upon your policies and procedures.
Yep. Absolutely. You've got the when you do that short circuit studies, you plug in different types of breakers or fuses or whatever, and it'll change the whole thing for you all at once, type of thing at any point
Yeah.
along there. It's getting more and more to where if you're in a situation like that, I if you don't include something like that, you're really costing yourself a lot of money. You might look
Yes.
at the cost to incorporate that, but that pales into insignificance as the value it will provide and the
Yep.
safety it will provide. And taking it a step further, the insurance companies and so forth, when they come in and see that you're taking these initiatives, you have an electrical maintenance program, you have an electrical safety program, and it is a viable, working, living, breathing document that people are following.
Yeah.
They're gonna look at you and go, "We're gonna come back and audit you in 5 years, not next year, because you've taken the steps ahead of time, and we're willing to support your risk," type of thing. Whereas the
Yep.
guy down the road who thinks this is a bunch of craziness, and I'm not gonna do this, it's gonna cost me money, well, guess what's gonna happen with his insurance audits, right? They're gonna be every year, and they're
Yes.
because the reason they put a high price on all that is because people won't listen verbally, gotta hit them in the pocketbook. They
That's
listen to
right.
their pocketbook, right?
Well,
So
unfortunately, that's what happens when you have a crew of people, you have an organization. I had a gentleman tell me this, Harvey, like, no, I won't say his last name, but Harvey told me this one time. He said that I asked him how he gets so much funding for his safety
yeah,
program for his organization. I mean, he was very well funded. And he said, look, here's what I do. He says, when I'm talking to my guys and gals in the field, he says, it's about how you're getting home. how you're going to get home in one piece, how you're going to put bread on the table and food on the table and pay for their the life, their kids going to school and all that jazz. He says, but when I talk to my organization and my leadership, it's about here's how much money we're saving on OSHA fines, on OSHA, fine avoidance, hazard avoidance. We didn't put 3 or 4 people, insurance monies are coming down, right? So, and in some cases, when somebody has reportables, they might not even be able to bid a job, right?
Because yeah, exactly, because they'll look that's part of the job,
That's
proceed
right.
because the people that are asking for that recognize how important it is.
That's exactly right. Everybody's recognizing the significance and the importance of it. And it all gets back to your policy, your procedures, making sure people are doing the right things.
And making sure it's in a structured program
That's right.
that you can implement, that you can measure, right? That
Yes.
you can measure, accountability and so forth type of thing. But it's also, to the people that are involved in it, there's there's sort of a, you feel good about belonging to a good company, right? A company that treats you right, and
Yep.
they recognize as your personal input to that company. If you build a team like that, and it's not going to happen overnight, but if you're in the process of trying, the plant's going to grow, right? But you got to keep watering it. You got to keep it going. You
Absolutely
can't just
right.
walk away from it, type of thing.
I like it, Robert. I like it.
Well, I hope we've been able to give everybody something to think about at least.
I think we have. I know I've got some annex materials I've learned about. I never really took a look at a couple of these that you mentioned, and I enjoyed the discussion. That's for sure.
Yeah, I did too. A lot of what prompted me to do this, by the way, is some of the things that you brought out about what your company is doing, like for arc flash with the inside of the
Oh yeah.
switchgear, light is faster
Oh,
than those
our
types of things.
clenchers. Yep.
Yeah, and I've also uh, been involved in other discussions where people they put this on their safety on their program for the main office, and when somebody's going to go to work on that, they have to call the main office to go through different protocols to make sure that all the all the policies and procedures are followed,
Yep.
and then the training, like with Wes, what was this last name
Wes
again?
Wheeler.
Wheeler,
Yep.
what happens if something changes when you get emotionally upset, or the one that
Yeah.
you talked about where you change the tool,
Hmm.
rope wasn't working, so
Oh, that's
you
right.
changed
Yeah.
it to a chain, and
Yeah.
nobody thought about the chain going inside
That's
and
right.
shorting out the equipment. But then you had something else in there that highlighted the importance of the selection of the gear, and the guy called and thanked you because you had the instantaneous latest and greatest, and
Yeah.
nothing. The boom didn't go boom, but
Arc
that
reduction
was
maintenance
a
switch.
sequence all the way down the road, and it was just
Absolutely.
by changing a tool. And I
Changing the
remember
tone.
that.
Yeah, that is exactly right. We wrote an IEEE paper on that, and it's those types of things when you say you follow, like in that case there, they followed all of the procedures, they did the pre-job planning, they had all of the right technologies in place, and then you know the job or the job changed midstream.
Yeah.
Instead of falling back and doing the right thing, they made a decision on the fly, and when they caused the event, it was a non-event because they had already taken all these other precautions to make sure that the incident energy was really low. And thank
And
God.
why were they able to do that? Because in 110.3, I parenthetical 3 change in scope. An additional job safety planning and job briefing shall be held if changes occur during the course of the work.
That's exactly
So
right.
that's just an example of the implementation of that. And everybody who's on the same page will be watching for that. You got more sets of eyes than just one.
And that's the hardest part. That right there, when things change, to be able to say that you have to do additional job safety planning and briefings, and it's 5 o'clock, it's 3:30 on a Friday afternoon. Things
Mhm.
change. Do you really want to say, oh, wait, we've got to go back to the drawing board and we've got to get everybody together, cancel dinner plans. I'm not going to be able to
Mhm.
see old Lucy play in the Christmas play this Friday. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
But
so
by the same
many.
token, you're gonna be there for her next play, and,
That's
you're not gonna be in a burn center somewhere,
that's right.
and, the risk that you took because you deemed it riskable, and you
Yeah,
didn't have the authority to deem it riskable, but you took them out bull by the horns, what's that called? Risky behavior is getting away with something and not having anything happen, and then
yeah.
you continue that risky behavior, right?
Amen. Yes. I tell you, there's just so much to it. It's a job, it's a career, and you want it to last, and you've got to
Well,
follow the rules.
the thing is, people might think this is daunting, and it's not daunting at all. You have to change that word. It's amazing. It
Yeah,
is absolutely amazing.
that's right.
The energy we deal with, the hazards that we deal with, and we're doing it more and more successfully because look at more and more consumption of energy and electricity and things like that.
Mhm.
But we also got to not, we can't forget the statistics that are piling up and the people that aren't with us anymore because of whatever reason, attitude adjustment or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, no life is acceptable. No loss of life is acceptable.
I
And
agree.
everybody has
Mm,
to feel that way. There can't be no collateral damage in this trade. It's got to be changed. And it's going to take those who have the passion and who have the energy and who have the desire and who have the networking capabilities and the humility to do
that's
it.
right. That's exactly right. Takes a lot of dedication. I love it, Robert. What a way what a way to, keep Shock Week moving and to keep it alive and keep the right information in front of all of the right people, so,
Yeah, and to all the people that are involved in this, all the people that will listen to it, a big thank you. You guys are encouraging to the rest of us because it's becoming important to you. There's
yeah.
strength in numbers, and you're going to bring something to the table that nobody else has. Remember that. It's unique to you. So keep bringing things to the table. Keep getting involved. Keep on keeping on, so to
Keep on
speak.
keeping on. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Did I tell you about the 3 golf clubs before we leave?
Now tell me about the 3 golf clubs before we leave.
I didn't tell you that one? Okay, so 3 golf
Mm,
clubs go out for a drink,
'kay.
and so they're at the bar, and the bartender says to the first golf club, he says, "What are you gonna have to drink?" And the first golf club goes, "Well, I'm a putter, so I'm gonna have a Black Russian." Goes to the second golf club and says, "What are you gonna have to drink?" And the golf club says, "Well, I'm a wedge. I think I'll have a whiskey sour." And the third golf club, he says, "What are you gonna have to drink?" And the golf club says, "Nothing. I'm the driver."
I think you did. I remember the "I'm the driver" part. I love it. I love it. It's so true.
Now the
It's
world
good.
will know.
Now the world will know. It's all good. I love it.
If you're
Always
following
be the
70,
driver.
yeah, if you're following 70E, 70B, and 70, you are the driver.
Absolutely. Amen to that. I love it. Well, I enjoyed the discussion and I thank you
Thank you for
again.
letting me be a part of it.
And I appreciate all of your knowledge and all the contributions that you made. You are awesome.
Just back at you, brother, back at you. I will mention this. Yesterday, we did a first 10-minute recording on a tech talk for a company
Yeah.
out in New York. And Laurel is my recorder.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she's been my recording. She records all of the stuff that I do for the last 3-4 years. Her and another lady up in Mankato, Minnesota, who runs the organization of what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she helps with that.
That's
doing the
cool.
recording and so forth. So you'll have to give a shout out to her when
She's
on
research.
the next tech talk.
I
Yeah.
will definitely do that. I love it.
Yep.
This is good stuff.
Yeah.
All righty. Beautiful. And now, again, so we'll call this one to an end, and we appreciate you And thanks everybody out there for watching this week's Shock Week episode with Robert from Omaha. Now, Robert, what you have to do is tell everybody that you're looking forward to seeing them at Shock Week.
Right now,
Yeah.